Hello, and welcome to the Pragmatic Product Chat series, where we tackle the biggest challenges facing today's product management, product marketing, and other market and data-driven professionals with some of the best minds in the industry. I'm Rebecca Calageras for Pragmatic Institute and your host for this episode. For those who are familiar with the show, and if you're familiar with Pragmatic, you know that there are many things we're passionate about, but two in particular, right? We are very, very, very passionate about creating good products, having a strong product development process to build items that the market really wants. And we're also really passionate about community. If you've been to the Pragmatic alumni community, you know that we are passionate about creating spaces where product people can work together, right? So this combination of product development and community together. But it's not the only place where these things combine, right? And in fact, there's a growing movement led in no small part by today's guest to leverage community really explicitly within your product development process. And so today, I'm extremely excited to have on the show Jake McKee, who is sort of the founder of the modern customer community movement, who spent a lot of time building out community-driven product development, has a consulting practice that works with this, and has just spent a really impressive career in the community space with communities for brands that we all know and love, like Apple's and Lego and Southwest Airlines, just to name a few. So welcome, Jake. It is a pleasure to have you on.
Thanks. So glad to be here.
Excellent. All right, Jake, if you're new to the show, you may not know, but I always like to start with sort of your origin story, right? What got you so passionate about community and community development? What led you to where you are today?
Oh, I'll try and make it succinct. I came to community. The running joke for years and years has been that I've been doing community since that meant convincing my web development clients to put an email address on their website. I go back those days because back in the early days of the web when we were building websites for clients. And we'd tell them, hey, let's include some contact information. Let's put an email address on there. And they'd say, well, what happens if they contact us? And, it was the very first time I heard that. I can still remember the client. I won't say who it was, but I remember the client very distinctly because I remember having this moment of like, what? I don't understand. You'd engage with them. This is the benefit here. There's, and I'm having to explain an obvious benefit. This is odd. And, it actually set the tone of the rest of my community career for basically another 2 decades was let me try and explain the value here on an ongoing basis. But yeah, I went to school for traditional product design. I was a big scale modeler, still am, in high school, and really liked building things and, saw what Industrial Light and Magic was doing and thought that was pretty amazing. And then met an professional industrial designer. And he was kind of showing me what he worked on. And I was absolutely fascinated by it in high school and, went to college for traditional product design and got out and went straight into the web. That was, to me, kind of the new, interesting, nobody knows how to do this stuff yet, product design. And, that led to a job at Lego as a senior web producer. And, I kind of had the, I think it's fortunate position of doing all the miscellaneous projects, right? When nobody else knew where quite to fit this thing that came up, including the Lego edition of the Ford Explorer that we were exploring, working with Ford on, kind of like the Eddie Bauer edition was going to be the Lego edition. And it needed web content. It needed a better understanding of what this thing was. My boss said, I don't know, Jake can do it. And sure enough, I started working with the Ford team and the Lego team to not just develop web content around it, but really kind of started thinking through how does this thing actually work and how are people going to use this and all the traditional product design, product development principles. But at Lego at one point, a couple of years in, I went to my boss and said, hey, man, I can't do 2 full-time jobs. I'm doing this community work with the adult fan community full-time, and I'm doing senior web producing full-time. I just want to focus on community. There's too much opportunity, and we're passing it on because I'm kind of shoving it in between the recesses of my other job. And he goes, great. I've been waiting for you to come to me with this. So here's what we're going to do. And off we ran and, built effectively a community platform that still is growing to this day, right? I mean, you go into Target today and look at all the amazing, adult-oriented, just masterful design kits. That was a far cry from what we were trying to do to convince the company to pay attention to this really odd audience. You're not talking about boys 7 to 12. So what are you doing? It took some work to get through to them, but
you can't see it, but right over here is my Lego typewriter that I put together. So
exactly.
we could geek out on Legos for quite some times, but we won't, Jake.
I can go as long as you want. I think that the takeaway for that to me in all this though was that when we started, there was such a resistance to that audience, and a huge part of my work wasn't just the when you use my quotey fingers, right? The community stuff, right? It was really helping the company understand what were we doing, how to engage them properly, how to give their feedback the weight that it deserves, but also not too much weight, right? How do we figure out where to plug in all this feedback, all this information, all this connection that we were getting? Where does that fit into the organization, right? How do we create a platform of engagement that really, builds existing audiences, builds new audiences? And at the end of the day, this is where my everybody goes home happy mantra came out, right? That I really worked hard to convince the company and the community that we were in this together, right? And understanding what makes the community happy, what makes the company happy, and communicating that to both sides, so that the community says, "Oh, okay, if we want really cool kits, we have to do these things to make that a viable sales option." Great, got it. And the colleagues saying, "Oh, they're not just angry about this or that. They want these things and they don't get them. And that's why they're feeling the emotions that they are." Okay, cool. We can fix that. That's easy enough to fix. Those sorts of, really different worlds, but really understanding and respecting each other. How do you bring those things together? That was the takeaway for me. That's really driven the rest of my career the last couple decades.
Yeah. Yeah, which I think is, like you said, it's sort of that first step, that first level of community-driven product development, which is an absolute perfect term for what you're talking about. But let's expand a little bit for listeners who haven't had the opportunity to read as much stuff. What is community-driven product development? What do you mean by that?
Yeah, very simply, it's kind of my term, my approach and methodology for integrating, very important word, integrating your community members and your customers into the product development cycle itself. So one of the things that I've seen over the years is that there's a lot of upfront work, right, that goes into all the traditional research, the voice of the customer reports, the traditional research functions. There's the product development team will go out and they'll do on-site interviews and they'll do one-on-one interviews, but it really is a very one-way. I'm going to ask questions. I'm going to get data back. We're going to take that data. Okay, great. We've bundled all this knowledge up, including our product specs, the budgets, the timelines, all the pieces that we need. We've got all the elements. And now we go into our product development black hole for some period of weeks or months. We do some things and then pop up and say, ta-da, here's our product. And then a whole different set of kind of one-way things kicks in, right? We start beta testing. We start putting it in front of the customers. We apply traditional research methodologies again. All of that is good. All of that is necessary, not to take anything away from those, from beta testing or reports to the customer reports, any of that stuff. But what I believe is, as a community guy, that there's this middle ground, that black hole is where problems happen, right? Where product team biases can kick in, personal interest, internal issues, internal requirements, can adjust that trajectory, even the slightest little bit, so that by the time you're done, you're off track. But by the time you're off track and you get out of the black hole of development and you say, ta-da, and people react, you're like, well, geez, what do we do? Right? It's too late now that we understand why they're not liking this or what this problem is or where we chose A instead of B. We're off track. And now it's a whole big thing to kind of back up, right? And go back into the hole, figure out what's happening, and then come back up again. My belief, as somebody who's worked with communities for years and years, is that having having access to your colleagues, you turn to the right, you say, hey guys, I'm stuck on this development issue. What do we choose, A or B? And they go, I don't know, let's work through it. Okay, A. And you go, great, perfect, off we go. What happens if you were to also turn the other way and say, hey, community members, a select group of people that we've chosen, the right people at the right time, right? And I can say to them, as the outside perspective group, we're in the middle of developing. What do you think, A or B? And they go, oh, yeah, I don't like A at all. Here's the reasons why. B is where it's got to be. And you go, oh, God, that's fantastic. Hadn't even thought of that, right? That's an outsider's perspective of the people who are actually going to be using this thing. And having both of those, again, this isn't taken away from anything that's happening now. It's adding a whole different layer. And having that black hole be just a little less deep or a lot less deep, right? And have this presence of community accessible all the way through the entire project with the right structure, right? This is a programmatic methodology. We're not talking about just randomly, haphazardly pulling people in and asking questions and saying thanks. It is a program. It's a way of connecting product development teams and community members in a structured, formalized, yet fairly casual sort of way. And I have done a number of these projects over the years, and they've 100% of them have started with a very big resistance from the product team saying, there's nothing we can learn from them. There's, or it's going to be too chaotic, or there's not enough time. And 100% of them have come back and said at the end of the project, this is great. We got into perspective we wouldn't have gotten otherwise. We noticed stuff far earlier and less expensively than we would have if we had just waited until the beta testing process. Can we get more of these kind of programs, or can we add more people, or whatever? It's always ended in a very positive place. But that's the high level. It's really an integration of community members into your product development cycle. And again, I talk a lot about the big fours, the right people. So we're specifically going out of our way to choose the right people for the right methods, the right timing. So we may have a few people in an ideation phase. We may have 15 in an ongoing development phase, and we may have 40 in a post development, pre-beta testing phase. I'm making those numbers up. Could be anything, but we really think about, it doesn't. You don't just build a huge team and have them present forever. You get the right people at the right time for the right outcomes. Right. This is a business. We're not just here to do this for the fans. We're here to do it for our business team as well. And with the right activities, we're really planning this out so that there's fun for both product team and the community members to keep them engaged and relationally connecting over time. And at the end of the day, when these things launch, these products that are developed this way launch, not only have you gotten you've lowered your risk, you've created a better quality product, you've also created advocacy at day one, right? Where when you launch, you've got a group of people who helped create this. This is their baby, and they're going to defend it to the death, just like anybody else's, right? And that happens at day one, not some number of days or weeks or months after, when you've finally come out and said, "There you go, ta-da," and launched the product and had to kind of build up that advocacy.
Yeah, no, and I think you make a really good point that it is not replacing things, right? Like. Right. Talking to your customers is critical. It's not the only one you need to talk to, right? You need to talk to non-customers and things like that as well. But in terms of getting the customer's voice in a consistent manner and a far more accessible manner than it sometimes is, I think the community can play a great role. You talked about the big four, the outcomes, the people, the timing, and the ask or the activities. I just want to talk a little bit through each of those, if that's all right.
Sure, yeah.
When you say outcomes, right? Like to your point, we're not just all getting together to have tea, right? There is a specific outcome. How explicit do you recommend people be in sharing that outcome with the community members? Like, does everybody know, hey, this is the outcome we're looking for? Or is it more of an internal alignment piece to understand what outcomes you're looking for?
Yeah. So there's a couple of parts to that question. Generally speaking, the everybody goes home happy mantra applies here as much as anywhere else. I am usually pretty explicit with the groups that I'm working with. We want to bring you in. Here's why. We need these sorts of things. We need your opinions and we need your feedback. Now, the reason I am that explicit is because they can't help us if they don't know what they're helping with.
Yep.
And they can't be, I used the word relational a minute ago. These are relational activities. They are not traditional, statistically valid research programs, right? They are a relational engagement to help give a different kind of feedback and support to a product development team. The same way that if we turn to our colleagues down the hall who are not working on our project and when we're stuck, and we just say, what do we do here? Can you come help brainstorm with me? Right? That's a relational activity. We're doing the same thing here, just with a different group of people with a different perspective. So you can't build relationships when you're not being honest about why you're there and what you need from them. Right. And not that you're trying to hide. When I say honest, I mean openness, right? I'm saying, here's who I am, come connect with me. So that's issue one, is we have to be in that state of mind to create really positive relational engagements. Two is they can't help us if they don't know what they're looking for. And three is we can't really keep ourselves accountable to that, to those outcomes if we're not really clear and really honest about them. I think a lot of times when I start these programs, people do think, oh, we can't tell them why we're doing this. Well, they already know it. They know what.
They know you're a business.
Speaking,
they know that you want to make money and be successful. Like we're not naive.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, the flip side of that coin is I also go out of my way to make sure that when we invite those people in, we are saying not only here's what we need, but I'm saying I understand you. Did I get you right? Right. This is the therapy language of the Imago relational marriage counseling. Right. You say a thing. Did I get you right? And did I understand you? And in doing that, what you're saying is it's not just about me. It's relational. It's two-way. It's inherently a two-way engagement. And they immediately go, well, this is cool. Yeah, I like that. And then you start backing this up. This is the other piece, the activities piece, that it's programmatic. You're thinking through my job is to help clients really understand what are we going to do? Not just how do we talk to them, but what's the structure? What are we doing as our rituals and the culture of this type of program? Every Monday we get together and we do these things just like any other team, right? We have certain fun activities, or we do big presentations and we make it fun and we add silly hashtags to our conversation just to add some of these little fun bits and pieces, because those give us a chance to show them that we understand what you're enjoying here, right? And that's really, that part of it's really important. But yeah, generally speaking, I like to be as transparent as makes sense. When I say transparent, I don't mean giving away trade secrets. I just mean that we're not hiding the stuff that's obvious, right? If I go into a car dealership and I say I want to buy a car, I don't have to say that. When I walk in the door, I'm probably there for service or sales. Like there's not a whole lot of other reasons I would be there, and people kind of know that. So if I walk in and try and hide that, it just gets weird. If I say, no, I'm not here for either one of those two, then why are you here? It's a weird.
Just wanted the free
dynamic.
Cookies.
Right, exactly.
Nope, that makes a lot of sense. And again, I am known to be a sort of extreme transparency person. People. This one's really interesting, right? Because I think there is a temptation sometimes to handpick the people that you think might agree with you, or right. I mean, you want the right people who are going to make value, but you also want to make sure that you are getting the external opinion, right? And not just building up a sort of community members that are going to just reflect back what you want them to. So How do you identify the right people, and how do you keep them fresh so that they're not getting too insider, for lack of a better word?
Yeah. So let me break that apart, because again, there's a lot of nuance in this, right? Simple methodology of 4 things, but there's a whole body of work below each one of them. So the selection process is meant to create, again, it goes back to the outcomes. What are we trying to achieve here? If we're doing an ideation session and we're just trying to get brand new, net new ideas that have never come up before, that may be a very different group of people than when we actually start developing a product that people have been using in their careers for 20 years, right? And we need people who are experts in this, right? In an ideation phase, we may get a mix of people who have absolutely no contact with the product, or have products, adjacent product knowledge. right? If I'm using Fusion 360 from Autodesk, but I'm not using one of their other products, it might be important for me to come in because I have some basic understanding of the Autodesk ecosystem, but I don't know that product they're talking about or this new thing they're trying to come up with. It really is about designing these groups based on who are the right people, right? Are we looking for short-term people, ideation phase, and then they're gone. Then we're going to move to another group of people. Are we trying to move them through from ideation and kind of track their progress so that we can see how they grow as we give them more information and more engagement? With certain projects, and I'll give you an example that was one of my favorites personally in a second, but how do you, if the goal is to make sure that advocacy exists, then getting community leaders is important, right? Again, we're talking about relational activity based on an outcome we're trying to achieve. We're not talking about statistical validity. So even your question about, how long can they stay in before they kind of go native? Maybe we want them to go native, right? Maybe if they're involved in the actual development process, being really well versed over the 6 months it's going to take to be there is incredibly important, right? Or to your point, if we need them to be not really engaged with us in the actual creation process, and we're really just looking for them to be a sounding board ongoing, then yeah, they may switch out every couple of months. We may add new blood in, right? Any one of these programs, even if it's like an online community champions program, I always talk about everybody has to reapply every year, for instance, just because it gives them the sense that this isn't permanent. I can't sort of settle in. I've always got to come back and kind of renominate myself and reprove myself. And it also gives a chance for people to step away naturally if they've said, okay, cool, I did my time. Now I can't do it anymore. I'm too busy, or I've run out of interest or whatever. It gives them a chance to kind of naturally back away. But this is how we design the programs, is really figuring out some of these details. The example I'll give you is when I did the Lego Mindstorms program. The very short version of this is we had a 10-year-old piece of technology, Lego Mindstorms 1.0, and we were working on the 2.0 version 10 years later, right? And you can imagine consumer electronics 10 years later, there was a lot of change that had happened. And for both cost and technology reasons, we weren't going to make it backwards compatible. And I immediately knew we had a community of very active, very vocal, very spendy. They spent a lot of money over the years on all that 1.0 technology. And we were about to tell them, hey, guess what? We've got this new product, but none of it's backwards compatible. Everything you've done, learned, and bought is now kind of irrelevant, right? And I knew that pitchforks and torches would be coming out soon. And so in order to avoid that, I worked for almost 4 months to find the right 4 people. The product team, after a lot of political capital spending, internal negotiations, begging, pleading, bribing, I got them to say, yes, we'll include some of the community in our development cycle. And I took 3+ months to find the right 4 people. Somebody that represented hardware, somebody that represented software, somebody that represented events, and somebody who represented kind of the general community vibe. And that was important because I wanted to make sure that when we launched, no matter what happened in that group, no matter how deep they got, no matter how much they engaged with the product team, when we launched, I wanted to make sure that the voice of the community was well represented so that nobody could say, well, you guys did all this and didn't get any input from us. Well, actually, not only did we get input from you, we got input from people that you couldn't argue with. When this finally came out, that we launched the product, we announced the program that we'd been doing behind closed doors in secret for 9 months at that point. The community largely went, well, why wasn't I invited? I mean, that's fair. John and Ralph and Steve and Dave were there. Good choices. I just wanted to be involved. Sure. Instead of, why them? That doesn't make any sense, right? So it took a lot of work to find those 4 people. But they also were the right 4 people in the sense that they knew what they were doing. And, they were highly engaged on their particular areas of interest, where to the point the hardware guy, John, was, sharing technical drawings and having conversations in mechanical engineering terms, right? In a way that just random people couldn't have had. And those guys stayed there throughout the entirety of the program because the more that they got immersed, the more the value that they actually created. I've done other programs where, to your point, because we just wanted kind of a sounding board, we did keep it fairly high level, and there wasn't that level of deep engagement, and there was more people to kind of balance that out. More people, it feels like we're part of the team, right? We're embraced. When we've had 15 or 20 or 25 people, it's a big enough group. The dynamics change, and everybody kind of gets the sense that we're just here to give that sounding board. So again, it's all programmatic design.
Absolutely. Okay, so the third one is also really interesting. It's timing. And timing, it's interesting for several different ways. You've already talked about how many different places in our development cycle, how many different spots that there is an opportunity to get feedback. So I think that's part of it. And I also think it's really something you have to be really thoughtful for, not just with community, but whenever you're doing research, that you know where you are in the process and you're bringing them at the right time, right? You can bring them in too early or you can bring them in too late. There's all, and sometimes, again, it depends on what you're looking for. So when you think about timing, Jake, how do you think about it? And what are the kind of factors that you help your clients understand in terms of timing?
All based on outcome, right? So much of this is we discuss and talk about the outcomes up front. And sometimes the outcome is, if we don't have some voice involved here, we're going to get eaten alive when we launch this thing by a very active audience of people. Doesn't matter how smart we are. It doesn't matter how much good we're delivering. The reality is, the way our community works, if we don't have some voice from them involved, they're going to be angry. Okay, cool. Great. That's an outcome we can deal with. So then you break down the timing. Is this an issue that we just have to make sure that we're showing them product? And I say product, it could be an online service, it could be digital, physical, whatever you're outputting, that we're going to show them when there's still time to make change, but largely it's sort of baked out. They just want to make sure that, before these things happen, that there's some sort of, space and involvement. Or is it that before we even start creating the new thing, we've got to get them involved in ideation, right? So the outcomes of, making a net new product, for instance, that nobody's ever seen before, or that doesn't exist for our particular company. We're going in a new space, something like that. The timing. When I talk about timing, it's phasing, right? So we may do one or all of the phases to have this sort of integration. Again, just like the traditional methods, you may have some types of research at one point, some types at another point that you check in on in different ways. But for me, it is really about saying, okay, we've got these outcomes and we've got these challenges, right? So, our team is really strong in this area, but not these other areas. So can we append those weaker areas with community feedback and community input, and I'm cautious to say feedback because that makes it sound like there's just a group of people saying, hey, here's thoughts, right? But it is relational and it is two-way. It's more support than it is just pure feedback. I did a project recently where they had much of the development done on a physical product that they were working on, and had Bluetooth connectivity. And we had a sort of pre-beta type of group that we put together. And one of the first things that started happening was there was questions about how to make the Bluetooth connectivity work, stay connected, that there were problems with the connection, and figuring out how to kind of take all that input and feedback and awareness of what was happening and turn that back into development. So some of it was content, right? Because just generally speaking, the concept of how the Bluetooth was working and why it was there needed to be a little better explained. Just seeing that, as we got closer to launch was important. Having feedback about what the problems were when it was sort of mass audience, even though it was 40 people, it was still a lot of different devices, a lot of different circumstances that they were using it in, stuff that went well beyond kind of the traditional quality methods. But we were pulling that way back up in the beginning because this was a net new platform that they were developing. And so they didn't have, 3 versions previous to rely on, that they were just kind of expanding. And so we were doing some of the beta type testing beta testing style testing, but we were pulling it way earlier in the process so that we could address it before it was kind of too late, very expensive to then go back in and make course corrections. So, again, timing is really, it's based on outcome. It's based on what do we need from the business? What does community need from us? So we get that everybody goes home happy mindset. So when we understand those outcomes, just like any good strategy, then we start breaking it down to say, okay, who do we put in? When do we put them in? How long do they stay there? When I talk about timing, it really is, the phasing, the length of time, and then of course, the activities play into that too. Because what are you doing when they're there? You don't want to, have a group of people just sitting there doing nothing and twiddling their thumbs because they lose interest and they kind of go, well, I guess they didn't really want us here in the first place, and that's never what you want them to be thinking.
No. But then that also touches on the fourth one, right? Like and I think this is an important thing to be successful. You have to be really clear on the ask and create activities, create engagements that are, in fact, engaging. Right. So let's talk about a little bit about that fourth aspect, right? The ask, the activities that you are bringing to some of these engagements.
Yeah, the activities are. Yeah. So what's funny about activities is that people really, I use the word activities because it gives the sense of a little bit broader footprint of things we might be doing, right? We're not just giving, certainly not projects because they don't work for us, right? This is not a co-employment situation. These are volunteers, and we have to keep some of those legalities in mind when we're working on these. But we don't just say, okay, here's a thing, we want your feedback. Okay, now we're done, right? It is a series of activities that are both kind of functional and emotional. So I like routine, just like in any team, right? We know a lot about how to build teams, in any sort of environment, whether it's a group of volunteers at the local animal shelter that are coming together and you're trying to keep them engaged, or whether it's a paid team of employees working together. A lot of those dynamics are similar. And, the activities piece here, there is some level of, again, we go into this with the planning. We generally speaking know that we want these things to happen. We're going to inform you of those so you know what's happening. If we're building a physical product, we don't have anything right now. And so here's how that's going to work. In the first 2 months that we're doing this 6-month period, whatever, making this up, we are going to work on diagrams. And here's how we're going to show those to you. We're going to want to get your feedback. But once we actually have some products, then we're going to give some or all of you one of those. And here's how that's going to work. And we want you to test those sorts of things. But there's specifics of kind of the formal, right? So once a week, we get together to give these sorts of reviews. When you give feedback, we have built this process specifically for this feedback. Which is part of this overall methodology. So you have to have good processes to get all this feedback, and from what you're seeing. Again, kind of the non-statistically valid feedback. How do you form that, shape that? As somebody said in my position, overlooking the program, but also for the individuals, how do they give? Oh, we had an error. How do we submit that in a way that doesn't just overwhelm the product team, right? But how do we do the smaller activities? So if we've got a product, how do we make it fun? So instead of just doing testing the Bluetooth connection, okay, cool. So can who can, if we're having trouble with connection, who can keep it connected the longest, and how did you do it? Yep. Right? Let's make that kind of a fun back and forth. So it's a little bit less. Again, this is relational, right? We're not always perfect. We're not always delivering an absolutely wonderful experience. Part of the fun of these things for the people, the community members involved, is that they're getting behind the scenes, is that they're not getting a perfect experience, is that they're getting to see how the sausage is made. So enjoy that, right? And have some fun with that. Could be little small pieces. This is all the kind of the team building stuff. What is the water cooler conversation you have that relates to the industry or the topic that you're there for, but isn't the product itself, right? So, if we're building a product around, I'm looking around my desk here, crafting, see my orange-handled Fiskars scissors there. If we're building a product specifically for crafters, Okay, cool. What's the broadening of that, right? Tell us your favorite, whatever it is, right? Some of those community building principles just to get people engaged and staying engaged. And, sometimes we will see uh, executives come in and do Ask Me Anything sessions that may or may not relate to the specific product development itself. They relate to the team, right? Or you're kind of showing how the sausage is made. Here's our team. You know those guys real well, but here's the executive they report up to and what they're overall responsible for. Oh, that's cool. Oh, you guys really mentioned something about being interested in how this product is manufactured. But did you know that we have a whole team working on the manufacturing of this particular kind of thing? Not just the plastic shell for our product, but all the plastic shells for all the products. He's going to, here's somebody from our plastic division is going to come in and talk to us about that, right? Just to kind of, again, keep people engaged in what we do as a company. It's really easy sometimes to forget how much fun outsiders think of our company. Even at Lego, when I was at Lego, it was one of the funnest places you could think to work for, right? And there was a lot of people that would get just really busy and, focused on their own deliverables, their own metrics, for what they were going to, their own performance reviews, and forget how much fun it was. And on the outside, there's a good reminder from the product team about how cool this really is, the things you're working on, which is also part of the value of doing these, is keeping your product development team super excited because you have a bunch of people saying how great a job they're doing that come from outside the company. They're not their bosses saying, on your performance review this quarter, you've done a really great job. It's people going, this is the coolest thing ever. I'm so glad to see this, right? It's a lot of fun. But so kind of this formal and informal combination in the right way at the right time. Some of that's ad hoc based on what you see, and oh my God, we're going to react to that. That was fun. Some of it's programmatic that you have designed before you even start the program.
I think it's a really that point. Not only do we get a lot of feedback, we build a lot of advocates and loyalty because they get to go outside, and it also is rewarding, right? I mean, I think. Yeah. It is easy to forget how excited and what a difference we can make in our customers' lives when we don't see them all the time. And we have often, right. I also think that we think of community as very separate than we think of our product. And in a lot of ways, by doing this kind of community-driven product development, you start to blend the lines between the two in a really, really right. healthy way. Right? Because the community is not just a support function. It's not just another piece. It is an invaluable resource for feedback. It is an invaluable access point to our customers and market. And when we use that, they really, I think, helps. It raises both ships, as they say.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. I think that is one of the things that gets missed a lot in this sort of combination of community and product is how much fun these activities are. Right? Building new products is fantastically, enjoyably fun, right? I've always really gotten a kick out of doing really great community work, although sometimes it's grindingly difficult because people are yelling at each other online and misunderstanding each other left and right. It's still really amazing to see when people come together and realize things and go, oh my God, this is incredible, right? I call it speed to competency right now, because how fast you can go from, with the community environment, you can go from, I don't know anything to, I want to learn a thing and I'm going to put YouTube here and I'm going to put my screen here and I'm just going to toggle back and forth between them. Or I need something, right? I mentioned I was a scale modeler, and I posted in a vintage garbage truck Facebook group a picture of a vintage garbage truck that I was thinking about designing myself, but I only had one picture of it. I couldn't find any other pictures online anywhere. Didn't know anything about anything. Posted it and said, hey guys, I need help. What is this? Where does it come from? Do you have any other pictures? And over the course of like a week and a half, people just started saying, oh, here, look into this. I'd look into that. Oh, this is amazing. Let me ask a question. And all of a sudden, without a whole lot of effort, there was this unbelievable volume of knowledge that got opened up, right? And the speed, the competency there for me on that particular topic was insane. And now I know more than about vintage garbage trucks than I ever wanted to know. But it's so much. It's so interesting to see when community really works like that, how much fun it is, and how many ideas came out of it and thoughts that I never even would have considered going. Oh well, for that project I can do these other things, and now I know so much more about it. I can ask all these better questions, right? which is part of, I think a lot of times our research suffers from the fact that we don't start off with a good enough set of questions. And where do those questions come from? Well, there's a lot of really great, smart community people out there that can help guide us in, what to even ask in the first place. But how do we not just treat them as research subjects and we treat them as relational colleagues, so to speak, connections, not just research targets.
I think it's a good reminder. I think it's something as people in the community space, we're very aware that it is not a transactional product, right? The community is 100% relational, and we often fight really hard to help the rest of the organization understand that, right? That it's not transactional, that we have a bigger piece. And I think this is an area too, where if you want this to be the best, the community-driven product development it can be, it's, again, as you've mentioned regularly, it is about treating it as a relationship and a relational structure, and not thinking I'll just come in and punch my card and get a quick answer every time. Right. You might get some, but it's not going to give you the same depth and the same insights and build the same advocacy as if you really treat this as a kind of a two-way streak.
Yeah. And I'll say, so there's a natural inclination for all of us to avoid risk, right? And I think that, in my experience over the years, a huge part of the reason why we get into these spots where we do have all the statistical validity focus, right? That, we don't want to have folks integrated. How do we even justify or align their opinions with statistical valid understanding? And how do we make sure that they're not going native on us? A lot of that comes from some real questions. Yeah, we want to have good data, and sometimes, when somebody's been working with us long enough, they get kind of morphed into the larger board thought, right? Instead of being sort of an outsider, staying an outsider. So that's valid. I'll also say that a lot of times the reason we default to those things is that we get our professor business hats on and we think about risks and we try and avoid risks. And if it's statistically valid, if it's traditional research methodologies and they're wrong, then I'm not on the hook. Right? That it's safe to go in these directions. And the moment we start working on relational activities, it gets risky. And again, this doesn't doesn't take away from any other methodology. It does add one more on top of it. But I do think that there's a lot of strength in having these sort of relational activities that help us to get past some of these things that we get stuck in simply because we're trying to avoid risk. And the biggest challenge that I've had in some of these programs, either selling them in or running them on a regular basis, is about not defaulting into a risk mindset and really thinking about it from a relational mindset. And that's where, again, there's this byproduct of having this community plus product connection, being this constant reminder of not just how much fun it is, but, creating some joy, reducing the risk, seeing that, when we create a relational activity and we get something wrong, it's not the end of the world, right? That we can create, go further because we're making mistakes sometimes, but because we're really representing the community properly, that we're getting that representation back to the community to say, not just doing it all in private, signing NDAs away forever, and you can't ever talk about it, it's in the vault, but to say once it's out there and once it's no longer something that has to be protected, that we can share it, that we can say, you were in this program, go talk about it, have fun talking about it. And the whole community goes, man, that was really cool. How do we get to do more of that? How do I get to be one of those people? How do I get to work hard to improve my overall position, to be a more positive, supportive person in the community, so that they'll look at me instead and say, oh, they should be invited in, right? And it creates a really interesting sort of development, post-launch, back to development, to post-launch again cycle that creates a huge amount of positivity.
Excellent. All right, Jake, we talked about lots of different things today. If you were going to have our listeners do two things differently tomorrow based on what we talked about today, what would it be?
Oh, that's a good question. I think the first one is to really assess the product development cycles that you're using today and see where you can integrate, not just get feedback, but integrate community members. Even if that means starting with 2 people that you already have existing relationships with or are leaders of communities that you know well, and figure out where to put them in. Put them in for a day, for an hour. You don't have to build a huge, formal, ongoing, months-long program, but just get started. Get somebody to come in. You may have to get them under NDA. Sure, no problem. Make sure if you get them under an NDA, you clarify what they can and can't talk about really clearly, because a lot of times the problem with NDAs is people get them signed and then don't really understand what to do. And they're like, okay, never mind. I'm never going to talk about this again. But, get them in, sign the NDA, but talk to them. Just have a conversation about what you're working on as deeply as you're allowed to do so, and see what happens. See how that relationship changes after that. Kind of watch for what they do when they go back to the community. Talk about how cool it was that they got to have some input there. Understand what they were doing, what they were giving feedback on, and how valuable that could be if that was extrapolated, right? So that would be one. Just get started somewhere. I think the second one would be to really start asking yourself some questions about risk. Every time you find yourself as a product owner, product manager, product developer saying, oh, we can't do that, that's too risky. Or, oh, we need an NDA to go anywhere near that. Oh, we can't engage because they would have all these troubles. We can't bring people in because they'd tell us all kinds of stuff that wouldn't be valid or interesting. Ask yourself but what if that wasn't true? What if we could do that? Just ask the question in your head. Doesn't have to be a whole big conversation. Just challenge that thinking, that risk-oriented thinking, right? We have been in the business culture. I think so much of what we've been driven by is a risk-reward ratio that legal drives, and not what the business drives, right? And what does that mean? Lawyers, as important and as functionally valuable as they are, their goal is to reduce risk to zero. Right. At the end of the day, that's what they're trained for. That's what they're engaged on. That's what their personal performance reviews are, is that we reduce risk as low as humanly possible. Our job as business people is to reduce risk as low as possible and reward as high as possible in a ratio we can defend. Right. And when we start getting sucked into this, let's just reduce risk mindset without thinking about, but what reward are we willing to fight for? That's where we start to get off track. And that's where a lot of products end up being this very vanilla, plain, uninteresting, and marginally successful, if not unsuccessful products, because we're not taking those risks. And so I think the question to always ask yourself is, when you find yourself saying, oh, we can't do that, or it's scary, or it's problematic, or that's not possible, challenge yourself. Why? Because I think 9 times out of 10, you're going to find yourself going, well, we probably actually could do something. It might be kind of cool, but we've all kind of defaulted, and legal has trained us far too well to think about the risks and not enough about reward. So those would be my two for you.
Excellent. All right. Well, Jake, thank you for joining us today. It was a pleasure having you on. If individuals want to learn more about Jake and what you do, where should I send them?
The easiest place is my website, jakemckee.com, JAKEMCKEE.com. There's all kinds of stuff on there about the CDPD and my CX Sessions event that I run, a side project for senior product and community leaders, and a whole bunch of other stuff. That's the easiest place to get me.
Sounds great. All right. That does it for today's episode, everybody. Thank you for listening. And don't forget to join us next week when we tackle another great topic designed to help you elevate your product, your company, and your career.